Architecture tells a story of history and of hope. It conveys the community's aspirations for posterity. Nowhere was this more evident than during the Great Depression, when factories shut down, stores closed, farmers, mired in debt and drought, let their lands go fallow. In a nation of 130 million, perhaps 60 million, including family members depending on wage earners, had no economic sustenance. Roosevelt himself underestimated the true situation when he said in his second inaugural address,
"I see 1/3 of a nation ill-housed, ill-clad, ill-nourished."
Pawtucket also suffered. Even before the stock market crash of 1929, mill owners had been transferring manufacturing to southern states. Pawtucket, the city that industry built, saw its factories beginning to go dark. By 1936, nearly 4,000 Pawtucket residents were laid off, and another 2,000 had no jobs at all.
So it made people quite resilient. Well, a few chickens, a few rabbits, raising livestock, planting gardens in backyards, whatever. They became very resilient, and also to make much out of what little they had.
If ever there was a time when hope and inspiration were needed, it was then. In a 1932 campaign radio address, Roosevelt had called for plans that build from the bottom up and not from the top down, that put their faith once more in the forgotten man at the bottom of the economic pyramid.
Now in the year 1930, they don't pay nothing and they do us dirty if we ever do.
Roosevelt's architect of the New Deal, Harry Hopkins, wanted to put people back to work, not just to provide relief. People laid off by the private sector, said Hopkins, can do jobs no one else can afford to do. Why, we've got enough work to do right here in America to employ every unemployed person in this country.
New York City, federal jobs for thousands at the rate of 100 a minute, while all over the nation work progress administrators are hurrying to transfer millions of idle from relief rolls to work payroll.
138 Green Street, New York, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Municipal Building, Borough Hall, Brooklyn, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.
$5 billion went to the Works Progress Administration, the WPA. Men and women hired by the government worked on more than 5,000 schools, 2,500 hospitals, 1,000 landing fields, 13,000 playgrounds. Even artists went to work for the WPA.
Following Roosevelt's election in 1932, entrepreneurial city officials in Pawtucket saw an immediate opportunity to put the city back to work and back on the economic map. With the support of the new Public Works Administration, they began planning new public facilities. Pawtucket residents went to work to build them.
McCoy Stadium is one of the most well-known WPA-era building. Pawtucket West High School, what we call, again, today more popularly Shea High School, is a beautiful Art Deco, Art Moderne WPA-era building. In addition to putting laborers and people working in industry and even architects back to work, it also was concerned with the plight of writers and artists.
First on the civic wish list was a new city hall, in which, for the first time, all city departments would be housed.
City Hall was controversial. People just didn't like the shape of it. They thought it was too modern, you know, too New Yorkish, a little too flashy for Pawtucket. And I don't know who was on the committee that accepted it, but I would say congratulations to them, because, by goodness, I think it's a very nice building.
In 1936, the city began to appreciate the fruits of its labors. The new City Hall was inaugurated in February. In the official city history of the event, Harold Kirby wrote, "It is a representative building, embodying the architectural and utilitarian ideas of many laymen, as well as professional designers. It expresses civic pride and fulfills a promise to the people, and it was undertaken under the most trying of conditions."
I think it's very important for us to, again, look back to these original sources in relationship to their level of opportunism at that point in time, and perhaps how we could also use that today, whether it be through architectural and or urban design, at a variety of scales. The story is being told very, very well in the past, so how is it that we can capitalize upon that for today, moving into the future?
City Hall proudly maintained its civic and architectural prominence for decades. In 1945, after Roosevelt's death, the street on which City Hall was built was renamed in the president's honor. But the commercial activity which dominated the city center and provided the context for City Hall began to change. First, with the advent of the new interstate highway carrying the nation's traffic through the city, then with the decline of businesses made superfluous by suburban shopping malls. Eventually, the commercial fabric of the city gave way to a demand for parking. Much of Roosevelt Avenue was leveled by the wrecking ball.
We want to be able to create a way for people to come down from the downtown in the upper part of downtown, down in a really strong gesture coming down to the river, which is really should be the focal point of a lot of this redevelopment. And it's the reason why the land that's currently used for parking for the Slater Mill will ultimately become extremely important in how that's addressed and how that connects both Roosevelt Avenue and all the rest of downtown Pawtucket to the river.
And it has to be a focus of attention. It's really important. It's not just about bringing life to Pawtucket in general or certain businesses to Pawtucket in general. We really have to sort of create and cultivate certain kinds of areas of that kind of activity density so that people have an identity to a certain area. So if Roosevelt Avenue becomes a real place to go to, and somebody comes in to go to the GAM Theater and then they see all this stuff here, then they will start to participate.
It can't really work and be successful if it's just private or if it's just public. But public-private partnership is the key to making this successful and really getting the city behind it, because it will drive much more activity in town, both from people living in downtown and more businesses coming into downtown, because things, once they get rolling, as you know, they snowball.
70 years later, City Hall was targeted by the council and administration for renovation. The magnificent eagles which dominate the tower were recast and replaced. Robert McPherson, the sculptor, represents just one of many kinds of creative enterprises emerging in Pawtucket.
I love architecture in that way, and I hate to see it, kind of left behind, where a lot of the art of buildings nowadays is more of a graphic design. I want to see that art back, and when those opportunities arise, I really try to focus on them. And for finding the research for it, ideally they're original photos from the original building that I can then work from.